Welcome to Conversations with Achievers. I'm your host, Robert White. I'm a mentor to owners, executives, and their teams, and CEO of Extraordinary People, LLC. I work with people that want to create extraordinary business performance with less stress, more joy, and more personal fulfillment. So sit back, relax, and prepare to learn from your peers as we explore what it takes in terms of attitudes, habits, and behaviors that achieve extraordinary results. Results for yourself, for your family, and your community. Hello, Robert White here, and I'm delighted to be with you, delighted to have the opportunity to have an international guest to our little get-together. Paul McCarthy's got a background in software development and property management. Interesting combination. And he's brought those two together for a kind of slick way to manage property, no matter where you are in the world. Paul, welcome to Conversations with Achievers. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you very, very much for inviting me, Robert. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. And to avoid any confusion with anybody, it's Paul McCarthy, not Paul McCartney, because I can't sing. I can't sing a note. Rest assured.
Well, if you're Irish and you can't sing a note, that's unusual.
Okay, well, maybe I should say I can't sing a note in tune. I can certainly sing melody.
Well, you know, a bit of Guinness and anybody can sing, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And Paul is with us today from Dublin, and I had mentioned before our conversation, it's one of my favorite cities. If you haven't spent a week there, I just highly recommend it. The history, the music, the food, and the wonderful Irish people. So that's my little bit of PR for Dublin.
Always appreciated, Robert. It is great. I lived in New York City for 10 years, and I'm absolutely delighted to be back in Dublin.
Tell us a little more about your background and any turning points for you.
Sure thing. Well, Robert, I grew up on a farm down in County Cork in Ireland, and I'm one of 12 children. So the way we joke about it is we had a soccer team and a substitute, and and I studied computer science in college, and then worked all over the world implementing computer systems for the likes of Citibank, Sony Music, ABC Radio, Aramark, and many more large companies like that. In parallel with it, I've always been involved in managing both commercial and residential buildings as part of a family business. And about 5 years ago, I was managing a number of facilities, and I just found the process between tenants and myself and contractors extremely efficient. People were communicating using post-it notes, emails, text messaging, voicemails, tapping me on the shoulder. And I just found it very, very inefficient. And I decided to set about to build the simplest platform on the planet for managing buildings, infrastructure, and equipment. And this is what brings us to Snapfix today.
That's how you bring that knowledge of computer software into very, very practical, and I think very, at least for this non-expert from the outside, a very complicated, it's very complicated to manage property. Even a single rental house, but certainly a hotel, a building, an office building, things like that.
Yeah, well, we're approaching it extremely differently. We realize, Robert, that people are emotionally attached to software solutions such as Instagram, WhatsApp, TikTok, and Snapchat. And we've actually based our design for Snapfix on those concepts, using photos and videos, using tags. And we use a very, very simple red, yellow, green traffic light system to record progress. Red means something needs to get done, yellow in progress, green means completed. So everyone understands it. It's kind of a universal language where people use photos for communication and traffic lights for collaboration, and multilingual teams really like working together using Snapfix.
Wow. Well, and Paul, in the journey along the way, you obviously have had some success, and you've worked with and for some major companies. What about potholes? I mean, have there been moments when things didn't work out for you?
Absolutely. Well, we officially kind of got started after I had bootstrapped it for a little bit. We officially got started in September 2019, where we raised some investment and we started pulling a team together and building the core platform. And then a very short 6-7 months later, COVID hit. So in September 2019, we had decided to focus really hard, and we chose the hotel sector to focus on. Now, the hotel sector is a wonderful sector to prove your software. They operate 24/7, they demand high quality, and they have a large audience of multilingual staff. So they were absolutely loving everything we were doing in Snapfix. And then COVID hit, and we had to move into survival mode very, very quickly because many of the hotels were impacted. We had designed the solution from day one to work with all types of buildings. We had planned on focusing on the niche of hospitality for about 2 years, and we just had to reinvent ourselves in the middle of March to go wide much earlier than we expected. It was a traumatic time, there's no question about it. I had to lay off a number of people. I got upset and cried in front of the team at one point. It was just the sense of unknown was just unbelievable at the time. And we kind of dusted ourselves off after 24 hours and said, right, there's a big world out there. Buildings still need to be maintained. Life will go on, and now we've got customers, thankfully, on 5 continents. So we're thrilled.
And Paul, you had a history of working for someone else, some very large and stable companies. You get that salary payment every month reliably. When you ran into this buzzsaw called COVID, and many of our listeners I know identify with that, and I can personally identify with that. When that happened for you personally, when some, I guess, kind of anticipated or supposed security went away for you personally, what happened for you as a person, as a leader of a company, but also as a husband, as a provider, all of those kinds of things? How did you handle it personally?
I think the sense of unknown was the biggest risk there, not knowing how long this was going to last or if it was going to continue, indefinitely. I had studied a lot, Robert. I had studied a lot of the startups from Silicon Valley, and I'm a big fan of the Y Combinator letters, and they publish. Paul Graham from YC published a lot of great letters about the ups and downs of startups, and one of the key messages they talk about is plan for a disaster. You've got 10 things on your roadmap to be working on, and guess what? One of them is going to be a disaster. So if you plan for it and expect it, when it happens, you're like, okay, this is it. It's finally arrived, and it's not a complete shock. So I have to say I thought COVID was a complete shock. I don't think anybody was expecting it, but when we kind of sat down as a team, and I've got an exceptional team in Snapfix, we just really kind of calmed things and said, okay, we have to make the organization a little bit leaner, and some people that we had recently hired, we had to unfortunately let go, and we've thankfully been able to rehire and ramp up the team again since. But at that time, we just regrouped, took a calm, long-term view of the world, and said, yeah, this will all turn back around again.
So the gift from Y Combinator and their knowledge base was that spending any time on why me, why did this happen to me? You didn't indulge in that, or maybe you indulged in it very briefly.
You give yourself 24 hours to cry into a pint, and then you put it aside, and then you get back to
work. I had a recent death in my family that's been knocked me off my stride a bit, I must admit. And my former wife and I made a pact together. It was our son that died, and
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's been a rough year in that regard, and we made an agreement that when we get ambushed by feelings of sadness and anger and all of that, we will take a deep breath, and then we'll start remembering his many positive qualities, our experiences together, and what it does, it speeds up the process and gets us, in neurolinguistic programming, they call the kind of one of the goals is what they call an ideal resource state, which is kind of a mouthful. Ideal resource state, that's our goal, that we want to be able to bring all of us to the matter, to our family, to our business, to life. And what I've discovered is that little simple agreement that we made to support each other in that way, that has made a huge difference. But I also see that with stuff happens in business. I mean, that's a very sophisticated statement, right? Stuff happens. And the question is, how quickly do we recover? How quickly do we get back to being the leadership role that everyone expects of us, frankly, and that we expect of ourselves? And it sounds like that little simple bit of guidance from Y Combinator made a real difference for you.
It certainly did, Robert. And again, I'm really, really sorry to hear that about your son. I think I've been knocked off my perch a couple of times with some family bereavements as well. And I think filling the front of your mind with positive memories and positive experiences helps the healing quite a bit. But I also think it's part of life for us to have that pain and to suffer a certain amount. And thankfully, time does heal all wounds.
Yeah, it does, and thank you for the condolences. I noticed myself being kind of attracted to what seems like on the surface a little bit negative, which is this whole notion that, and there's this Canadian psychologist that's become quite popular all over the world, Jordan Peterson.
Yes,
and he is deeper than deep, would be one way to talk about it. The guy has done his homework about the human condition. And one of the things he says, which is not very easy to hear, is that life is actually tragic. And that part of our journey is to learn how to handle that. Of course, the existentialists say that life is hard and then you die. And the Buddhists, of course, all life is suffering. There's a commonality here, right? From spiritual, philosophical, and psychological people all say the same thing. It seems to me that part of our journey is learning how to handle the tough spots. It really is. And to recognize that they do come.
Yeah, and I think they're always a wonderful reminder to appreciate what we have. I'm not a very materialistic person. It's just not who I am. I can only wear one pair of shoes and one pair of socks at any point in time. I don't need a lot of things, and I'm a believer that less is more. People could do a lot less of materialistic goods, but it helps you to focus on what's really, really important, which is human relationships.
Yes, absolutely. Going into the future, we are in uncertain times. I often hear the word chaotic times, and with an impact on all of us personally and in business. As you look at the future of your business, of a nascent business, and I'm glad to hear that things are on the upswing and that you're hiring and bringing some people back. What do you see as kind of an imperative as you look at 2023 for you and your company?
Robert, I'm by nature an extremely positive person, so I'm extremely positive for the future. What we're noticing now in the world is that we have nearly 5 billion adults all walking around with smartphones in the palm of their hands. And I think the power and the changes that that's going to bring will be absolutely enormous. Every one of those 5 billion people can communicate and collaborate with each other if they so wish. And that's a key part of the Snapfix future, which is people with smartphones equals a smart building. So every building can be a smart building with people in it and smartphones, because the smartphone has incredible sensors in it. and people have the eyes and ears of the human being, and together they can make buildings the best they can be, the healthiest they can be, the best maintained, best quality, the best experience at all times. And that's the challenge that we're planning to crack.
Wow. Well, that whole notion of the power that's in your hand today it's just amazing, absolutely amazing. In our work in the high impact experiential learning field and doing leadership training, in some ways, the smartphone is the enemy, because it's how people distract themselves from what they really need to be looking at in the training context. We've tried all kinds of things. We've taken the phone away from people, they surrender them at the door, and then or we've set up little kind of demotivators to checking them on your break, all of that stuff. On the other hand, as a promotional tool for our work, where people take a few pictures near the end of the training and share them with friends along with their experience, it's one of the most powerful advertising, that little moment when they do a little quick video with their colleagues or with me or with someone else. It's so powerful. It's beyond description how powerful it is to see first person reports. And I can imagine that somebody posting a little quick video about something they've seen in a hotel property or another property would get attention. It wouldn't be shuffled off to some pile of paper on somebody's desk.
That's exactly it. The old line that a photo speaks 1,000 words and a photo speaks every language. I guess we as human beings, we're very visual beings, and we're used to seeing things, all around us in a very visual nature. And over the last couple of 100 years, since writing was being used, we were converting visual images to text, and then other people had to interpret the text and bring it back into a visual. So now we're staying visual. So I heard a great expression recently that the camera is the new keyboard, and that really resonated with me. So it maintains us all on a visual level rather than going into a textual level and then coming back out of a textual level all the time. But to your point, I think there's a huge amount of benefit, and if we can harvest as much of that and minimize the amount of evil, the world will be a better place. But I also think that necessity is the mother of invention, and our kids will figure all this stuff out just fine.
Speaking of the kids thing, I saw a presentation by a superintendent of schools. So she had something like 30 different schools in her system. But what she talked about, and she showed a little demonstration, was how the graphics had changed things for education. And what she showed was a 2.5-year-old open a smartphone and go through a learning sequence without ever knowing language. Even she had very limited language at 2.5, and certainly she doesn't read or write. And yet she was learning because of this little graphic program, and she knew how to scroll, how to zoom in. She had figured all of that out at 2.5 years old.
That's incredible. It's just so much more intuitive, and I think we're at the very early stages of it. But these means of communication are much more intuitive, I believe. And I think photographs and video are a phenomenal way to communicate together.
Well, I'm meeting just in a few days with a dear friend, somebody that I've been on a journey, a personal growth journey with, and he has taken what he's learned from me and from many others to build an incredible financial advisory firm with over $1 billion under management. But what he's been working on for the past year is an app designed for people that are in mid-career and want to get better, want to reinvent themselves and really go for it. people that are already successful and want to be even more successful. And
fantastic.
So for the first time, I actually have a partner in taking some of my content and getting it into a powerful app that will reach a lot of people. But it's all smartphone based. It's
and it's a wonderful way to give back. I mean, as I mentioned, 5 billion adults with a smartphone on their in the palms of their hand. It's a wonderful mechanism to be able to share valuable information with as many people as possible for the benefit of humankind and for the benefit of the planet.
Well, Paul, it's just been a wonderful conversation, and I'm cognizant that if you're not available for dinner there in Dublin with your wife, that you're in big trouble. Look, if my audience wants to connect with you, learn from you, learn with you, maybe even teach you a few things, whatever connection leads to, what's the best way for them to connect with you? Do you have any requests of them?
Sure. Well, our website, our Snapfix website is very simply snapfix.com. My own personal email is paul@snapfix.com, and love to help anybody if I can, and I'm delighted that people reach out, and if we can help them with Snapfix, great. If they want some advice on my startup journey or any experiences I've had, be happy to share them as well.
Wonderful. Thank you again. I hope I get to meet you personally, because I would love to. I want to come back to Ireland and listen to pub music.
I'd love that, Robert. That's a date in the future, and we'll get out for a bite to eat and a bit of live music.
Wonderful. Thanks again, Paul.
Thank you, Robert.
Thanks so much for joining us for Conversations with Achievers. If you or someone you know would make a good guest for this weekly show, the details are at therobertwhite.com and click on podcasts. I'm looking for businessmen and women with a story to tell, stories that might benefit other owners and executives. If you got some value from this program, I'd really appreciate you sharing about it on social media, and just mentioned www.therobertwhite.com. Of course, subscribing means you won't miss a show, and rating the podcast positively will leave Robert smiling. I'm building a movement here for leaders who want to succeed in business, succeed with their families, have fun, and contribute toward making the world a better place. It's special to me that you chose to listen. I look forward to connecting again next week. Remember, reach out to me anytime with any questions or concerns at therobertwhite.com. Bye for now.